Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we are taking a scalpel to, well, a modern horror classic that really changed the game for suspense in the last decade. We're diving into Don't Breathe, the 2016 film, and we're going to break down why it wasn't just, a hit, but a technical masterclass. A film that some critics called a definitive horror experience of its time.
It really was. And to appreciate it, you have to look at where horror was, say, in the 2000s.
Right.
That decade was, it was really dominated by what you call torture-focused horror. I mean, you saw you in Hostel.
All that explicit gore. It was a spectacle of suffering, really.
Exactly. And frankly, audiences were getting a little tired of it. So by the 2010s, we see this major shift. It's evolution.
The elevated horror movement.
That's the one. Filmmakers started leaning into, deeper social themes, psychological dread. Think of films like Get Out or Hereditary. They were scary for different reasons.
And that's where Don't Breathe is so interesting. It kind of sits in the middle, doesn't it? It has that visceral up-close brutality of the 2000s films.
It definitely does.
But it applies this incredibly sharp, almost intellectual focus on technique. It became this sleeper hit because it was so simple, but just brutally effective.
That's the key. Fede Alvarez, the director, took a very simple setup and just completely inverted it. The film is on Hulu now, by the way.
Right, I saw that. So the setup is what, a group of young thieves?
3 of them, yeah. They're desperate for money, and they decide to rob the home of this man, Norman Nordstrom, Stephen Lang's character.
A blind man.
The blind man. He's a Gulf War vet, blinded by shrapnel, and they think he's sitting on this huge cash settlement.
So they assume he's an easy target.
Yeah.
The classic home invasion trope.
The classic trope, but the genius of the movie is that it flips that script almost instantly.
Yeah.
Before the title card even shows up, you realize the prey is actually the apex predator in that house.
That initial shock is so powerful. But the real reason it got reviews calling it like a thriller of a generation, that comes down to the execution.
Oh, absolutely. The tension doesn't come from cheap jump scares. It comes from physics, from the space itself. That house. That house is the second most important character in the film.
So let's talk about that, the mechanics of the claustrophobia. What did Alvarez do specifically to make that house feel so suffocating?
Well, first, he establishes the rules of the space immediately. He uses these incredibly long, unbroken takes as the thieves first case the joint.
Right, so you, the audience, are learning the layout with them.
Exactly. It serves 2 purposes. One, you understand the geography. You know where the doors are, where the hallways lead. The stakes are clear.
And the second purpose?
It traps you in real time. There are no quick cuts to give you a psychological break. You are stuck in there with them, step for step.
And the camera work itself is so tight, they're always like squeezed into doorways or pressed against walls.
Always. The world shrinks to just inches around them. But the real masterstroke, the thing that elevates this entire film, is the sound design.
Okay, this has to be the aha moment for anyone listening who loves filmmaking. When your villain is blind, sound isn't just part of the movie anymore.
It becomes the entire threat. It's weaponized.
How do they weaponize silence?
By getting rid of the music. For long, critical stretches of the film, drops out completely.
And your brain immediately shifts focus.
Your attention goes straight to the diegetic sound, the sound within the scene. Every creak of a floorboard, every sharp intake of breath, that's all you have.
I remember reading the Foley work was legendary. They amplified the tiniest noises.
The squeak of a shoe, the clink of keys. Because the blind man relies on his hearing, every single sound they make is like a countdown timer to violence.
So silence isn't safety.
Silence is the goal, but it's an agonizing, almost impossible goal. The quiet moments are described as excruciatingly tense for that reason. You're just waiting for that one tiny sound that's going to give them away.
It puts you, the viewer, in a state of hypervigilance right alongside the characters. You feel like you can't even breathe. Which brings us to the man at the center of it all, Stephen Lang. His performance is it's captivating, and he has almost no dialogue.
It's a masterclass in physical acting. He conveys this strange mix of vulnerability and just coiled, immense strength.
And the film sets him up to get our sympathy at first, right?
Yeah.
We learn about the loss of his daughter, the settlement money, how he was blinded in the war.
It's all designed to make you see him as a victim. You almost feel like, okay, maybe these kids are wrong to rob him, but you can understand the target.
But then, the film starts to pull that sympathy away, piece by piece. When does that turn really happen?
It's a slow burn at first. I mean, he's a formidable opponent, but you could still argue he's just defending his home.
Right.
The real turning point, the moment the movie goes from a thriller to just profoundly dark, is the basement, when they find the woman he's holding captive.
And you learn his real depraved motives.
Yes. The moment you realize he's not just a grieving father defending his property, but a monster in his own right, the film just yanks the moral rug out from under you.
The danger is no longer just about escaping the house.
It becomes about escaping him. The horror shifts from physical to moral panic. Lang carries that transformation with such a terrifying physicality. He's not supernatural, he's just monstrously human, and that is so much scarier.
That moral ambiguity is what made it unforgettable. Which, of course, brings us to the sequel, Don't Breathe 2.
Ah, yes, the sequel.
It's almost the perfect case study in how to get it wrong. The numbers are just. They're so blunt. The original gets a certified fresh, 88% on Rotten Tomatoes.
A huge success, critically and commercially.
And the sequel, 43%. A dismal 43%. And that gap isn't just a bad movie, it's a lesson in genre.
It's a huge lesson. The post-mortem on that film points to two fatal errors. First was what I call genre dilution.
They took the action outside of the house.
Largely, yes. They tried to widen the scope, and by doing that, they completely lost that tight, suffocating tension that made the first one work. It went from a claustrophobic game of cat and mouse to a
generic action movie.
A straightforward and, honestly, a pretty ludicrous action film. They traded that agonizing pressure cooker suspense for, shootouts and bad fight scenes.
Leaky faucet, basically.
Exactly. And the second mistake was even bigger. They tried to redeem him.
They made the blind man into an anti-hero.
They tried to turn him into this protective father figure for a young girl. And that's narrative suicide for a character whose power came from his terrifying, unknowable monstrosity.
The fear in the first film came from his depravity.
His unpredictability. Once you give him this clear, heroic motivation to protect someone, he becomes predictable. And a predictable monster isn't scary.
So they completely misunderstood why people were drawn to the character in the first place. It wasn't because we liked him.
Not at all. It was about the sheer technical terror he created within that constrained space. Take away the constraints, you take away the tension. It's that simple.
And looking now, zooming out a bit, the fact that Don't Breathe is still so popular on streaming, it's on Hulu right now with its sequel, it just shows its lasting power. It sits there alongside other big horror titles like The First Omen or classics like Season of the Witch, and it holds its own because it's so technically brilliant.
It really does. Its continued popularity just proves that audiences crave these tightly crafted, focused thrillers. It's a testament to making the most of your limitations.
So, to recap, the things that made Don't Breathe a modern classic. First, the masterful sound design that chose silence over a score.
Absolutely.
Second, the genius trope reversal that traps the audience in a moral gray zone. And third, Stephen Lang's terrifying physical performance. It's a perfect blueprint for creating fear with minimal resources.
I think so.
Which leaves us with a final thought for you to chew on. When a horror film's success is so completely tied to its technical craft, the sound, the claustrophobic space, is it even possible to expand it into a bigger action franchise without destroying what made it special?
That is the question.
We saw the sequel try to swap that calculated dread for action heroics, and it just fell apart. It's something to think about. The price of trying to make something bigger when its power was in being small.
It is. And the next time you're watching a thriller and the sound drops out, just ask yourself, is this a moment of rest? Or has the filmmaker taught you that absolute silence is the most terrifying sound of all?